And then Will Smith initially laughs.
Yes.
But it looked like Jada was upset.
Mm-hmm.
And so Will changes his tune, walks on stage, and smacks Chris Rock in the face at the Oscars.
Joe Rogan has subtly confronted Jada for being the reason why Will Smith lost it at last year's Oscars and slapped Chris. During his recent podcast with Burt Kreischer, he slightly hinted that Will deserved what came for him and that he should have reined his horses when it came to his wife, Jada Smith.
But Chris says a joke around
G.I. Jane
2, looking forward to it, very mild, just laughed, and even said, come on, that was nice.
According to Joe, he believes that Chris was just trying to host an entertaining event and most likely didn't even know that his witty joke was not funny to Jada. Chris had made a G.I. Jane joke mostly just to be funny, but Jada, who apparently suffers from alopecia, did not take that well, and Will must have felt the need to protect his wife, thus doing something so irrelevant. After Chris's selective outrage, Joe reacted to it, and his merciless comments about Will Smith in it have taken the world by storm. Selective outrage marked the first time that Netflix live-streamed an event globally, and Chris Rock delivered a very fiery performance. It had taken him more than a year to compose his wordings and his flow, and when he actually did respond, he did it in a stand-up comedy that included a segment targeting Will Smith and his family. Joe Rogan bore testimony to the ruthless nature of Chris Rock's comments during the episode of The Joe Rogan Experience with Burt Kreischer. He said, "The SHT about Will Smith was ruthless. Ruthless. It's just like, imagine, in life you play chess, you move pieces around, you say, I do this and the counter would be that." Joe said it was really unimaginable that Will thought he was going to slap Chris Rock, one of the greatest stand-up comedians of all time, and get away with it. Will must have not thought about the part where Chris could get back at him and tear down his already vulnerable life with some of the best comedy that anybody's ever written. Joe liked the fact that Chris took a year to hone his message before he released it, claiming Will Smith's slap had been a terrible, unprovoked attack. After mentioning Rock's way of targeting Smith for the infamous slap of Oscar 2022, Joe Rogan even slightly hinted at Will Smith deserving the retribution for his stupidity. He said Will Smith destroyed his career with his dumb idea of slapping Chris Rock and even throwed light on Will Smith's popularity before the incident, claiming Will had been that person who was publicly loved. You know how liked Will Smith was until that moment. Rogan stated Smith's stupidity was the reason for his end. Nobody had a bad thing to say about him. Maybe they didn't like one movie or thought the superhero movie was dumb, but everybody loved Will Smith. Thus, according to Rogan, he believes slapping Chris Rock on stage was the worst possible move.
But those two, keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. Those two are what sunk him.
He claimed that the one thing that actually destroyed Will in the first place was adding on to his stupidity and slapping the comedian by mentioning the words that eventually made all the chaos. Rogan pointed out that Will sunk his own ship when he said Chris was supposed to keep his wife's name out of his mouth. Discussing with Burt Kreischer of other possibilities, Rogan stated if he just slapped Chris Rock and then just sat down and didn't say anything, they wouldn't know what to do. It would kind of drift off and people would forget about it. And in a way, he made sense, since if Will had just slapped Chris and not said anything, maybe talk about the incident backstage without mentioning his wife, people would have never labeled him Jada's pup and he would have doubled down on the hate he received. Joe Rogan stated that Will Smith had every possible way of turning the incident into a PR stunt and making the audience believe it was all planned, but uttering words of disrespect and slapping the comedian on live television created the entire issue. Now, hitting Rock should have never been an option for Chris, and he should have taken the comedian aside later and told him of Jada's situation without the violence, because at the end of the day, Chris was just trying to do his job. Their entire scenario had seemed like something from a movie where moments after Rock made the joke that poked fun at Jada Pinkett Smith's shaved head, Smith walked onto the stage and slapped Rock across the face. From Chris's face, it was clear he had not seen the slap coming, and he might have genuinely not known that Pinkett Smith has alopecia and has publicly spoken about losing her hair to the condition. Wow, Will Smith just smacked the S out of me, Rock said immediately afterwards, still astonished that something so bizarre had happened to him. Returning to his seat, Smith then called out, "Keep my wife's name out of your F-ing mouth." The entire Oscars was confused and didn't know how to react, with some smiling and laughing uncomfortably and others just silently watching on. Smith must have later come to his senses, because after winning the Best Actor award for King Richard shortly after the incident, he gave a tearful apology, saying, "Love will make you do crazy things." He was actually apologetic because the following day, he also issued an apology to Rock, saying his own actions had been unacceptable and inexcusable. "Jokes at my expense are a part of the job, but a joke about Jada's medical condition was too much for me to bear and I reacted emotionally," Smith wrote on Instagram. "I would like to publicly apologize to you, Chris. I was out of line and I was wrong." He also resigned from the Academy and was banned from attending the Oscars for 10 years, which is very far-fetched for both him and the Oscars. Jada herself also addressed the incident in an episode of her Facebook show, Red Table Talk, saying she hoped the two men could reconcile. I guess the two men never reconciled as Jada had hoped because Rock addressed the slap during a live show in Baltimore that was taped for his Netflix comedy special Selective Outrage. "Y'all know what happened to me, getting smacked by Suge Smith," Rock said. "People are like, did it hurt? It still hurts. I got Summertime ringing in my ear. But I am not a victim, baby," he added. "You will never see me on Oprah or Gayle crying." Later in the special, Chris referenced the Smiths' marriage, suggesting that marital struggles were the cause of Smith's physical outbursts, and that the slap he endured had nothing to do with him. He might have had a point since back in 2020, Jada Pinkett Smith herself had confirmed she'd had what she called an entanglement with singer August Alsina during a breakup in her marriage to Smith. They actually addressed it in an episode of Red Table Talk. His wife was having sex with her son's friend. "I normally would not talk about this S, but for some reason, they put that S on the internet," Rock said in the comedy special. "We've all been cheated on. None of us have ever been interviewed by the person we cheated on television. She hurt him way more than he hurt me," he added. Candace Owens also had something to say about the slap and took a dig at Jada Pinkett Smith, claiming that Jada played a key role in her husband's behavior at the awards show. She then discussed Pinkett Smith's past entanglement with rapper August Alsina and accused her of causing spiritual annihilation to her husband. "The truth is that off the big screen, Will Smith has been spiritually annihilated by his wife. Don't forget, it was Jada Pinkett Smith who openly shared with the world how she cheated on her husband. Remember, and with who? Her son's friend." Candace added that Will Smith should be pitied instead of being prosecuted or persecuted for his latest actions. Will Smith today is someone who should be pitied, not prosecuted in a courtroom or even persecuted in the public eye, but pitied by every person who has the clarity to see how our society, as sponsored by the perversion of these Hollywood types, is falling apart. Candace Owens dubbed Will Smith as a casualty in the great war against masculinity and called him a person that psychologist Jordan Peterson would warn about, highlighting the plot of Demi Moore's 1997 film G.I. Jane and saying that the story is about a woman being integrated into the all-male space of the United States military. According to Owens, the film was inspired by the story of a loss of one woman's femininity to meet the grueling physical demands of a more masculine environment, sharing that Jada would have been perfect for the role. And so, though not perhaps the punchline that Chris Rock had intended, I have to agree that yes, Jada Pinkett would be the perfect individual to play that role in a remake. And not because of her hair, obviously, but because of her success in stripping her husband of any trace of understanding of what it means to be a real man. A fan on Twitter said, "Joe Rogan on Will Smith, how many other human beings could be in a similar situation and pull that off? You can't just go smack a man in the face in front of the world and then go about business as usual. It sets a terrible precedent in so many ways. It was a meltdown." Another said, "I agree with Rogan, but we must get past this. Will was wrong, but he can't unslap Rock." I'm not sure what Chris Rock wants at this point. Rock showed a great insensitivity with his Jada joke. Anyways, let's not forget that this video is based on theories and my opinions and should not be considered facts. That's it for this video. Bye.